When you look to the heavens for splendor, but encounter the night-black sky with islands of fire quenched in an emptiness thinning the void. When you turn to the earth for assurance and consider a moss-bound boulder, the witness to endless millennia is parent of pebbles and dust. When you weigh your fragile life, ephemeral as wren song, tender as the scent of jessamine swept by a freshening wind. When you cling to the edge of abyss, remember your birth. Your conception was always contingent. The odds of your mother's were 1 in a million. Her mother, much the same. You are the product of astrophysics, the toss of quintillion cosmic dice, the orderly flow of atoms and energy forged in the cores of stars. And you are a flesh-bound being of light, passion child of chance and law, a 30 trillion cell machine of spit and dust and dreams. Though the force of disorder breaks over all and your atoms come unglued, the world in which you never were is not the world that came to be. Woven from a wisp of time, your mind was made to roam beyond its mortal span. Come, step behind the temporal veil to claim the ancient eons before our ancestors evolved. Come, face the untold epochs after our kind has passed. I am the voice of a universe, and you are too. The whole of time is before us. Will you come too? Tonight I will tell a story based on poems taken from my book, Between Birdsong and Boulder, Poems on the Life of Gaia. It tells the story of cosmic evolution in lyric form. My hope is that it conveys just a piece of the awe and wonder that I feel when contemplating the expanses of time or the intricacies of life, even the reverence when I consider the interconnectedness that St. Francis himself felt when he called all his creatures brother and sister, even the sun and moon. Physics will take us back 13.8 billion years to the very edge of time, to the Big Bang. Genesis 1 does the same in a different language. But tonight I want to start with, even before that, in the mystery before time, where science cannot go. I'll give two poems back to back. The first is the first stanza from the prelude, So It Goes, and the second is Witness the Birthlight. Once darkness was on the deep, the unformed void before time, when unmoved mover meditates, quantum foam collapses states, force fields quiver, random jitters juxtapose, cohere in song, a reveille. In the beginning, when before was illusion, and after stretched all the way, now awoke to fire. It burst past plank time when worlds were yet without form. For the wisp of an instant, all was as one. It couldn't last. As the universe grew from the ghost of a point To the size of a grain of sand, the tiny cauldron supercooled to 1 billion degrees. Symmetry broke. A picosecond passed. Forces condensed and matter gained mass. In epochal seconds, the future was set. So minutes roiled through centuries and swallowed light in a searing fog, and so the scorched millennia passed. When plasma relaxed to atoms and void, free photons flew through the cooling realm from an ever-receding horizon. Come, beloved, witness the birthlight. All glows pale orange. Watch the ancient waves stretch through red as evening deepens by slow degrees and the cosmos slips into night. Though pitch black prevails for millions of years, in the fullness of time, darkness will sparkle with light. The primordial will pass. The age of stars will dawn. Or as the priestly poet put it in Genesis 1, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. The soul of poetry is condensation. Some 9 billion years pass, multiple generations of stars come and go, and at one point a nebula condenses in the spiral arm of a galaxy. It forms a medium-sized star called Sol. And 93 million miles out, orbiting in the habitable zone, a rocky planet enters its first eon, the Hadean. Hear the Hadean creation spell. How harsh the strained hosannas when earth was a molten sea, circling the sweet zone of soul. When rocks rained from space, a mass the size of Mars slammed the planet sideways. When the churning surface shook beneath a rock vapor sky, how bleak the hymn for the moon to be. Only the groans and ceaseless hiss as a stifling pall of volcanic gas sealed the lifeless globe. But creation moves through deep time. 1,000,000 years is a moment, and moments make new worlds. Soon the planet began to breathe. In the currents of time, the oceans cooled and captured the greenhouse shroud. In the cauldron of a fertile sea, chains of carbon linked and grew in ever-fresh cascades. How sweet the new creation spell as primitive cells sprang to life and Gaia emerged from the Hadean strife. Gaia. You can think of Gaia as a collective noun for all of life, or you can think of Gaia as a whole earth system that modifies its environment and is living. Or you could think of Gaia as just a metaphor. But hear this, it didn't take long before that metaphor started altering the chemistry of the oceans and atmosphere. The 1.5 billion year Archean eon passed with just viruses and primitive cells like Archean bacteria. And then came the 2 billion year eon called the Proterozoic, where oxygen poisoned the atmosphere and life altered. We had protist, algae, and fungi. At the end of this eon, glaciation happened, and we had something called snowball Earth, after which there came jelly creatures and an explosion of life. So the transition between that eon and our present one is captured in the next two poems, which I'll read back to back. To abide the cryogenian ice and out of the Cambrian nursery. She probed the world with prions and cells and simple assemblies of soft bodies, which would have felt no fear when the world descended to winter. Nor could she quiver in primitive awe when mile-high walls of ice advanced from pole to pole. Where was hope when white piled on white, reflecting warmth to space? And where despair when 60 million frozen years sealed Gaia in a snowbound crypt? The world would never end by ice, for deep beneath a seething core, hot as the surface of stars. When Earth could hold its heat no more, volcanoes replenished the greenhouse. Summer dawned across the globe on a nursery of shallow seas, from the gulfs of the Panthalassic Ocean down to the coast of Gondwana. This was a time of trilobites, the realm of sponges and worms, where peaceful beings grazed bacterial mats. But arthropods grew eyes and teeth, grasping claws and appetites to hunt the Cambrian reefs. The weakest prey, adapt or die. Ancestral sea squirts hardened their cords, fashioned a flexible spine. Descendants swam the sunlit bays and scraped detrital sands. When soft flesh added armor, agile hunters grew jaws. Hunger, chance, and predation morphed these forms into fish. The food web filled out. Deep in the first nursery, terror and beauty were born. We are now in the present eon, which is about 500 million years, a little more than 500 million years old. After the Cambrian explosion of complex life, life proliferated through the seas and then onto land. We had mosses, ferns, primitive trees. We got insects, amphibians, and reptiles. And then at the end of the Permian, the whole world almost died out. The great dying, 80% or more of life on Earth vanished. After a few million years recovery in the Triassic, we come to the golden age of dinosaurs and the age when flowers were also born, the Mesozoic era. I'll give two poems here. The first poem is Gaia Makes Monsters. Happy is the interlude, the time between catastrophes, the hiatus when Gaia made monsters. They bear horns and spikes and grow to the height of trees. Rough beasts roam Pangea. Super carnivores cull the weak. They stalk the shores of swamps, soar over sea cliffs, terrorize oceans. The ponderous, nimble, or lucky survive. They bulk up and browse the conifers or band together and coddle their young. Life lay thick across the globe as Jurassic became Cretaceous and age topped age with new tableau. How could her pageant ever close? Though continents crack and mountains erode, Gaia adapts and thrives. But interludes always end. After Gondwana split from Laurasia, pivoted south and splintered apart, India slid toward a mid-ocean hotspot, while in the heavens, unseen, unheard, a wayward asteroid turned toward Earth. The grace of flowers. The day the world first blossomed, Gaia was born again. A palette of colors no creature had seen, mixed with scents that none had smelled. Magnolias bloomed white fragrance, and sweet shrubs shed burgundy perfume. Lilies graced the still waters where furtive rodents dodged monsters. 10,000 orchids co-evolved, matching parts with insect partners. Earth exploded with roses and asters. The woods awoke to oak and ash. After the asteroid, flowers ruled with trees and shrubs, vines and weeds. Into this world new wind-born grasslands softened Gaia with robust greens. From cold steppes to veldt and savanna, from plains to pampas and pantanal, and high mountain meadows and prairies and pastures, new grasses, sedges, rushes, and herbs. Hues and kinds are still arising. The third day has never set. Which brings us to recent times when hominids wandered the plains of Africa and humans evolved a new consciousness and self-awareness and reflection. This poem is called Sabbath in the Garden of Plenty. Blessed is the break of day, the play of light that wakes the age of evening. While brother sun is still mellow and sister moon caresses the sea, Gaia reclines in a languid embrace that drapes the earth in a fertile sheen as life peers through fresh eyes and feels through new flesh. Surely this is the coming of grace, a final age when time itself takes Sabbath rest. Every dawn a resurrection, every year a jubilee, when sentience shares its bounty and finds enough to feed the least. For Gaia provides her body for all. Through every age of awakening, the tree of knowledge offers its fruit, that bittersweet tang of freedom, that fleeting scent of grace. With a new way of knowing, we could not stay in the garden. The next two poems, which I'll read back to back, describe our dispersal. It's called Lament and then Migration. We had a home in Africa below the Ethiopian hills. A garden laced with clean flowing streams. There were soft green pastures once and pools of still water. By fertile plains blessed with herds that stretched beyond the horizon. But a wobble altered the axis of earth. Winds shifted, climates turned, monsoons began to fail. Half a world away, an eruption rumbled for years. Veils of ash enveloped the sky. We watched as paradise dimmed. Now the ground is devolved to dust. Grasslands have withered and blown away. Herds have become dry bones and rivers cracked mud. The hunt has come up empty again. Children starve. Clans decline. The cradle cannot sustain. In our dreams, a new world beckons. Somewhere a river valley waits. Its trees will bear gifts of fruit. Wild grass will yield its grain. There'll be game to hunt and beasts to tame. Bounty lies beyond our home. And so we set out, away from the cradle and all we had known, to probe south through savannas and claim the mother continent, to wade the straits of the Red Sea and trace the route to Australia, to pass over Sinai rubble and round the Fertile Crescent, to forge north into cold steppes and wander lands beset by ice, to step through the basins of Asia to the shores at the end of the East, to launch in unknown oceans through endless swells to distant reefs, to cross the Bering Land Bridge and trek to the edge of the earth. Descendants will tread, till nature is tamed and wilderness fenced, till beauty is bent to riches instead. Dominion is our destiny. Though we scour whole continents, deplete the seas and dirty the skies, we're called to cover the face of the earth. And so we shall go, clutching our bounty and turning around, forever to find our cradle gone. Cursed to cry, how long? How long? Which brings us to today, when Earth is seeing a lot of stresses from our kind, species extinctions, habitat disruption. Gaia is under stress, like she hasn't been for a while. And this time, there's a new consciousness developing too among a lot of people and the young people. Gaia is crying out for us. This one is called a summons. Who will mourn the age of man when the epoch of Adam is done? His dream of dominion has cursed the earth. Our sweat has stained the ground. Now we swagger into the Anthropocene, where sickness shatters the lands and death depletes the seas. When cycles of life spin askew, Gaia cries out for her creatures to tend the afflictions of earth. Listen. Set aside your books to hear. She speaks her truths in feral tongues. In the howling clown of a wildfire, in the crumbling face of a glacier, in the cracking of ice on the Arctic Sea, a summons comes to humankind. Go make an ark of living earth, woven from grasslands, rivers, and trees. 10,000 arks across the globe, refugia fit for Gaia. Make an ark of the boreal forest, an ark of the chaparral. Set aside the high desert. Keep the tundra intact. Consider each reef a cathedral and every swamp a sanctuary. Let lawns revert to meadows and plant 1 trillion trees, where fever flushes the face of Gaia, where time of trials has come. In this age, an Eden awaits. In your hands, the seed. We don't know how this age ends, whether it'll be a hard landing or whether a soft transition, still to be determined. I myself am pessimistic in the short run, but quite optimistic in the long run. Guy has been through worse. Whether it be 1,000 years, tens of thousands, or even 1,000,000 years, Gaia will adapt and thrive again. There will come a time when the divine dreams of a new Eden. Streams of contingencies interweave as causation breaks a trillion threads. An orbit elongates, eruptions abate, neighboring stars go nova or don't. An ocean expands and currents subside. A killer comet veers wide of its mark. In time, there comes a confluence when Gaia rises to cleanse the world. She summons the storm clouds, unleashes the knife-edged winds, reaches the levied floodplains, and sweeps the jettied coast. She packs the high snowfields till mountain peaks glisten and glaciers scrape the jagged slopes, carve passes and water the plains. She cracks the concrete ruins. Wastelands revert to meadows. Crumbled tarmac blossoms with flowers, and culverts run clear. Southern seas are ringed with reefs. Arctic waters teem with krill. Forests shade artesian springs, and grasslands cover blackened soil. The tree of life grows wild. Tribes of leviathans roam the oceans. Clans of behemoths patrol the ice. Gray sagebirds weave epics on tropical nights. The world is a wilderness dotted with parks, where earthkeepers tend garden reserves and nurseries for emerging minds that will bless 1,000,000,000 years. So I see 1,000,000,000 years of eras of Edens coming and going in succession. But the sun is inflating slowly, inexorably, and 1,000,000,000 years, its luminosity will be about 10% greater than now, and it will be too much heat for Gaia to survive. She will start fading and life will burn out slowly. There will come a time when there's a last Eden. Trained to be a keeper of Eden, in the grace of my 8th decade, I heard the voice of Gaia. And to one pleased to dwell in the thickness of life, there came a spare vision. I soared above a worn-out world where splintered cratons littered the globe. I entered a weary age when Earth itself is exhausted. I saw forests evolve to scrublands and scrubbed to cactus and grass. I felt the last ice melt. My skin numbed as I swam the silt-choked streams, then blistered in the vicious sun. I watched hypercanes carve the coasts and claw the flanks of barren mountains. I saw mudflows stain the seas. Born to the evergreen bounty of Gaia, I grieved for what our world would be, and found for our defiance, friend. She'll nurture her own on a hostile earth, till seas retreat beneath their seams and continents grind to a halt. Before the return of Archean oceans, before the reprise of thermophiles, a final turn of creation awaits. Behold, a bright sun burns through sea mist and circles the southern horizon, warming a balmy polar morning. Across the Arctic, amber hills slowly green as grasses await their 6-month night. Here in a spare but gentle realm, beasts and keepers whose time has come share a garden on top of the globe. Her last paradise hugs the pole. Here lies her last refuge. Here ends the era of Edens. It may take 2 billion years, but there will come a time when life is extinguished on Earth. This last poem, before my final comments, this last poem is called Lamentation for Gaia. How lonely circles the earth, once the fertile realm of life. How desolate is Gaia's grave beneath the burning sky. Yet once she was that rare oasis, a planet blessed with oceans and air, breathing blue-green life on life in the light of a gentle star. She could take catastrophe and conjure new creation. She healed the scars of glaciers, volcanoes, meteors, and man. But the living sun inflates, and his radiance slowly grows. His body bloats red and swells and scorches the orbit of Mars. The sun has turned Shiva. His glare parches continents, turns forests to charcoal, and grasslands to ash. Gone is the heart of Gaia, gone her green pulse. Her withered skin is wind-whipped dust. Her corpse is a crypt of bones. Her funeral pyre is lit. Soon the remnant oceans boil. Soon the continents melt. Hell returns on a lava sea. Who is left to sing of Gaia? Who is left to mourn? Our only mother is gone to fire. How lonely circles the earth. Time will go on. A billion years after that, the sun will expand to the red giant, then a billion years later collapse to a white dwarf and slowly fade away. In 10 to 100 trillion years, the last stars will wink out. As the universe expands, even black holes will evaporate. And in the expansion back to nothingness, time will wind down. This is the epilogue, but before I give you the epilogue, I want to thank all of you for coming out and supporting me tonight. In particular, the Nature Ramblers. I appreciate the crowd of Nature Ramblers. I'm sure this is an open community that meets every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock at the Botanical Garden. It's led by naturalist like Linda Chapin, who is here tonight, and others. I also want to thank Bernie Patton for coming out. Bernie is an eminent ecologist who reviewed my book in great detail and offered some fine comments, and I appreciate Bernie coming back. And thank you for the regular poets. This is called epilogue. In the end, when after is illusion, and before envelops all, now dissolves into void. Nothing disturbs the deep. As the afterglow of creation fades, the ancient fears, the faiths, the hopes, the breath of love remains. Thank you.